So in spite of that, coming to listen to this few, I will make it short though. You see, I normally use talk, it's a mixed audience. I don't know whether they're students of 17, 18, adolescent students, or they're actually people as old as me almost. It could be my friends, so it could be my other colleagues who are holding positions, very high positions. I'm very kind of very humbled by their presence there. This time, because this is a topic which I picked up mainly for students when first I made this webinar series topics. But what I do is, I don't want to make the others bored. It's not meant for students. It's not supposed to be a classroom. So what I will do is, I will make it very general to deal mainly with psychology, one of the most fascinating subjects in the world. We always found it. So eyes don't see could be actually, you can rename it as psychology and design, or psychology in design, because sometimes, like if you remember, I made a statement that design is less of logic and more of psychology. So it's design is not logical, but it is psychological. It's logical too, but it is more of a psychological. So we will explore it. Before that, I don't want to disappoint my old friends who would expect me to tell a mullah story. So I will start with a mullah story. I will make it very quick. Friends, you all must be knowing we are now facing China-India conflict. Earlier also we faced the conflict, not only that, but we made a war. Many of you may not know, but many of you also know. Young people may not know, but elder people like us know very well. That's Kargil war. The war was won by India. And after that, the jubilant soldiers have come back and they were everywhere. Of course, naturally, they want to show their bravery and heroism. So they also came to this small village where Mullah Nasruddin stays. Mullah Nasruddin has a habit of going to the corner chai shop where he used to have his chai, his tea. And of course, Mullah is an interesting person, and he, people make a joke out of him, and they want to have some fun. They used to gather always. So Mullah used to enjoy it. We all enjoy people who want to listen to us. But that day when Mullah went, nobody came. What happened was, a soldier who has just returned from Kargil war was sitting and telling about his bravery, how he, killed so many people or injured so many enemy people, and all this heroism they're saying. People are fascinated by it. You see, whether we like it or not, we all like blood and gore. We all like violence. So everybody is there. Suddenly Mullah felt left out. So he has to do quickly something. So he immediately shouted, "Hey, come here. I also have some war stories to tell you, my war experience." And he sat at one small table. So some people have gathered, some children and some elders and all that. So Mullah started saying, "See, this is the way Mullah said. See, at that time, I was in this war. It's a bloody war. It's a real, people are being butchered left and right. But I jumped in. And I have no gun, nothing. I have only one big sword. And suddenly I faced this enemy soldier who was there, completely armed. And so what would I do? What did you do, Mullah? What did I do with my sword first I cut off his left hand. Then I have cut his left arm. Then I've cut his right hand. Then I've cut his right hand. Then I've cut his left toe. Then I've cut his right toe. Then I've cut his right feet. Then with one stroke, I've cut his right leg. So children are very impatient nowadays, you know. So one little kid raised his hand and said, Mullah, he got bored, Mullah saying, I've cut this piece by piece. Mullah, you should have cut his head first, he shouted. So everybody turned back. Mullah looked very hard at that boy and asked him, come here. The boy came because he had done nothing wrong. So Mullah took him by the collar and said, Bavakov, you think I have not thought of it earlier? But somebody has already done. You see? So that is what is it? It's actually a dead body. But Mullah hasn't said that till the end of this story. Because if you say that it is a dead body, the whole fun is gone. Now we will come back to this is what mind can do. Just by hiding some fact, you can make the mind leap. See, at least for some time, Mullah has kept the people occupied. But this is what I tell this in some of the classes. This is what design does. The fact is same, but the way you show it. So you're showing it in a different way to the same eyes. So we will talk about the eyes. I called it eyes don't see because we all think that eyes see, but actually we don't see with the eyes. I talked earlier how watches don't tell time. Actually, do they tell time? We buy watches just to see the time. How a car is not just for taking you from one point to another point. Do we really buy a car just to go from one point to another? No. And then Kamandal, I showed you Kamandal. Is it just any vessel to pour liquid? No. We buy watches, a watch could be. Time is by the way. The watches we buy because it's a decoration, it's an ornament, it is a jewel for men. Now jewels have gone, that's old fashioned. And it's also status. If I wear a HMT watch which costed once 500 rupees, and you can buy a Rada watch for 5 lakhs of rupees. They both tell the time exactly, accurately. But if you wear a Rada watch, a 5 lakh watch, you keep showing to others because that is a status. Similarly, a car, if you have a very costly car, Aston, or something which would cost you something like 27 crores of rupees. That also takes you from place to place. A 3 lakh Nano also will take you from place to place. Then why you buy a car paying 27 crores? Because that gives you a status which you don't have. And when cars were introduced by Henry Ford, he thought that that will just solve the problem of transportation. But what happened was nobody ever imagined. The social emancipation happened. Suddenly, all the sexual modes have changed. The social modes in America have changed. Everywhere it has changed. It has become a kind of liberation. Anyway, without dwelling much into that, I will, go back to something which will take us to design. I said design is not logical, but psychological. This is the excitement of this psychology, which is exciting in that. People who have seen, I will tell you an anecdote. I will tell that later. First, let us see an example of, I would like to first share with you. An exciting small letter I have found. Arun, can we show the letter? First slide, please. Can we enlarge it a bit? Yeah. This is a letter written by, scroll down. Scroll down. Okay. This letter says, second. This letter says, dear, slightly more. Dear, this letter is to say, it is over between you and me. I'm so sorry. I have to tell you this now, but don't take it personal. I hope we will stay friends. As I find writing this letter very painful, I won't make it too long. I don't have so much time either. I have to go tonight, Saturday, 20th June 2020. I'm going to the concert of Sid Sriram. He is really superb. I think it is at Kikanis. I forgot exact address. I meet many friends there and we all go out afterwards. This does not mean I don't care for you. I have to go. I'm already late. Bye. Okay. What do you think of this letter? This is, now I will tell you what this letter is about. This is a very cleverly done invitation card for the concept of Sid Sriram. This designer, his name I will tell you, Maureen Morin and Daniel van der Velden. They both have thought, let us show in an exciting way. This is supposed to be, Sid Sriram is a very popular singer. And all young people loved it. This is for adolescents. So how do you, others also can go who are interested in Sid Sriram. How do you make this invitation, particularly for adolescents? How do you make, if a 70-year-old person gets this letter, visually he should feel suddenly he is 17. So you are giving his childhood back to him. Look at the language used. This is the language of a 17-year-old. The visual style, look at the circles, small circles. No, there are no dots. All dots are little circles. That is the style young people use. Look at the content. Nowadays, you are breaking up with somebody and you don't care so much. You just say it like an ordinary thing. I'm not coming for lunch, that kind of thing. You say that I'm breaking up with you. And you say it, don't take it personal. So this is how somebody has actually gone into the mind of these adolescent people. And if you notice, this is not written with a pen, black pen. It is written with pencil. Why pencil? What is the association with the pencil? Pencil, somebody very beautifully said, pencil writing is like when you receive a pencil written letter, it's like whispering into your ear. So this is whispering. This is 17-year-old. This is the visual style of the 17-year-old. This is the rejection that is normal for 17-year-olds. So I thought this is a beautiful curtain raiser for this today's topic. So now we will go to some other. I will like to show you some examples. Sometime back, I was at Royal College of Art in England, and we had this good fortune of meeting this great thriller, one of the masters of suspense thrillers, Alfred Hitchcock. He showed his film Bird, which was released just that year. And what is astounding is, in the question answer session, he asked what sequence you liked in the film, and many people raised their hand and said, oh, that screaming when in the farm there is a murder which happens. Birds kill a man. So that scream is, really unforgettable. So in his black humor, see, Hitchcock has his black humor. So he pretended innocence. And what sound? What scream? There is no scream. People swore, yes, sir, there is a good scream, big scream. So Hitchcock said, let us play just this soundtrack. And the soundtrack of that particular scene is played. And believe me, I was surprised, what a fool I am. There is actually no sound. There is no sound. So, but we all heard, we swear that we heard, even I swore I heard the sound. What Hitchcock has done is, when the main character is going there to the farm, the camera follows her, and when she actually sees the murder, suddenly there is a big close-up of her screaming, open mouth and scream. But actually this Hitchcock always loved this, playing with his audience. So he actually cut off the sound. But still that visual and the way it has gone, the suspense is built up and suddenly it is, come up. It created a mental sound. First time I learned that you can create a mental sound without really hearing, without any sound producing agent. Anahatnath, I think it is called in Hindi. Earlier, way back, 1893, so many years ago, one artist called Edward Munch had produced a painting. He wanted to catch sound on canvas. Arun, can we see the next slide, please? Yeah, enlarge it, please. Okay, this is the painting by, it is called Scream. Many people, after seeing this, they said, yeah, we hear thee. It has become an icon now. We hear this sound. So this is the power of the artist. Now let us quickly go through it. What happens in the mind? This is a little bit of boring psychology, but you please stay with me. There are 4 things which always kind of excited me about the eye. First of all, the eye is acting like a normal lens. We all should be seeing upside down. You must be seeing me now, not my head, but you should be seeing my feet, because that is how, in a lens, the reverse image will be formed on the retina. But then what happened? But I'm seeing you up, right side up. You all are seeing me right side up. This is first principle of one of the 4 facts about eye is there is corrected vision. The correction is done by the mind. So the retina is not doing anything. It is just a hole, yeah, which processes the whatever the light rays coming in and sends a message to the brain. The interpretation happens in the mind. Next is, now you are seeing me, I am moving my head and all that, and you think you are seeing movement, which is wrong. It's an illusion. You are not seeing me, but you are seeing static images which are coming to you at the rate of 1/25th of a second. We tried this, and in a film, if you see the film reel, there are only static images. And when they're projected at a particular speed, and it looks like it is moving, but actually it's not moving. There is no movement. There is a blank screen, then one slide, blank screen, one side, blank screen, one side. So 1/48th of a second, you are always seeing a blank screen. So if you have gone to a film of 2 hours long, actually you paid for 2 hours, but actually you are seeing 1 hour blank screen only. We don't know it. I was very thrilled to know this fact. It's called persistence of vision. I don't want to bother you with scientific names. The 4th one, this is about the physical phenomena of seeing. The other non-physical phenomena is we also see some things which are not physical. Which is that? Can you think of it? Dreams, dream vision. However, the dream visions are coming to us. Where is which is receiving it? It's not there anywhere. Dreams come because they're stored in the mind. The visual is not there outside. You're just sleeping and your eyes are closed and everything is closed. But you are seeing this very vivid. Some dreams are so vivid. They're much more effective than even the real. So that is the dream vision. And the 4th one, which some people have it, some people don't have. That is what I call projective vision. What in designers and artists call it visualization. That is not there. Dreams probably are based on our experience. So as you grow in your experience, your dream power also goes up. And Freud calls it wish fulfillment. There are many theories. I don't want to go into interpretation of dreams. But the projective vision, some people are good at it, some people are not. All the science fiction writing is projective. All the writers are projective vision. Their projective vision is so good because it is based, probably it is based on experience. Sometimes it's not even based on experience, but they imagine something might happen. All the Arthur Clarke novels, I'm very fond of Arthur Clarke's science fiction, but they're not there. He has imagined them long before they were actually going to moon and all that have happened or not. But this is just the imagination. Imagination is projective vision. So these 4 types of visions, they're all in the mind. So let us conclude. Eyes don't see, ears don't listen, skin doesn't feel the touch, etc., etc., etc. So where is it happening? Ultimately, the mind which interprets the stimuli coming from eyes, ears, skin, and so on. Now let us take this argument a little further. If all these stimuli are interpreted in the mind has got so many other things stored there, all my memories. Even today, after so many years, I remember my childhood, my school days, my school friends, and all that. So it is so many things. Therefore, that means it is transferable. Means sound could become a vision could be touch could be something else and all that. It is transferable. Some artists have tried this. You must have heard Beethoven's Moonlit Sonata. It is a music, but if you listen to it and close your eyes and The idea is that it will take you to as if you are kind of sitting in moonlight. We have, right in Delhi, right in India, we have Hindustani music has this Megh Malhar, which is supposed to be monsoon raga. So it makes you feel as if you are enjoying the rain. Its sounds, its feeling, its coldness, its wetness, and all that. So another artist, a Bauhaus teacher called Kandinsky, Vasily Kandinsky, has tried to paint music. So he hears a piece of music and then tries to put it in papers and colors. So this transferability, people are using it. Then what happens is, every mind is different, like every face is different. Therefore, it is inevitable that meanings from the same object are different. You read a book, I read the same book. But my feeling, my enjoyment is totally different from you and your feeling. This goes with anything which we do. Based on this, a film, a great classic by Akira Kurosawa, Rashomon, has been made. 4 different people tell 4 different versions of the same fact, rape and murder of a woman. This is very famously told, and now it is accepted. So suppose, take another example. Suppose you have your mother's photo with you. Your mother is long gone, but you have her photo. It's a small photo. And it has fallen down. Somebody carelessly steps on it. What is your feeling? Your feeling is like killing him. But that fellow says, sir, what is there? It's a piece of paper. It's a bromide paper, probably. So why are you so excited about it? No. For you, for his mind, it is just a piece of bromide paper. But for you, it is your mother. Your mother's only, you're emotionally charged because it's mother, you loved your mother, and that is the only remaining from your mother, and somebody steps on it, you will really, even lose your life to defend it. So it is said, recognizing this, it is said, the beauty is not same for everybody. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, we were told. There are also other, I'll quickly go through, there are 4 principles of mind. Mind first, mind forgets. It's not only old people, any person can forget. If you are overloaded with, like your computer also will crack down, the mind also will crack down. So if you kind of keep on loading it, mind has an automatic self-preservation mechanism, so it keeps forgetting. So it will remember only those things which it wants to remember. So it's very selective. Research scientists say that we forget about 60% of what we have experienced. In that selection, it depends on you what you want to select. Yeah, but sometimes people, you have a traumatic experience that you will always keep on remembering, because that is very, very heavily shaking you. So all the philosophers say that, spiritual leaders say that you should remember only positive things so that it will kind of keep you positive and keep you, cheerful. It is also selective perception. You will see only what you want to see. In a crowd, see, suppose you have gone to a party, you will you look for people who are very familiar and people who are very dear to you, and you will spot them. For others, they are nothing. So it is a selective perception, selective memory. And it's good that we forget. Otherwise, we will be nervous wrecks. So we should keep on forgetting. The other one is we are selective attention. If you're reading a page, normally, whether you're a fast reader or slow reader, you don't read every word and its spelling, isn't it? We don't read. We go by a pattern. If we read spelling of every word which we read, we will never be able to complete even one page, leave alone the whole book. So the mind goes by salient features. So if there is a PR, it will go and make up its and PR and N pronouns or something like that. It will keep on, doing, take some clues here, there, and based on that, it will make. That is how any linguist will tell you. The other one is mind reconstructs reality. It is each time it is a different kind of reality. Therefore, if I look at some work which I have done 5 years ago, suppose I have written a book 5 years ago. Now, if I look at it, I will find so many things. Oh, I could have improved this, I could have improved this, I could have done this, I could have done this. That is natural because the mind is reconstructing every time because the contexts are changing and I have changed, my mental makeup has changed. I mean, my mental vocabulary, mental language, and mental resources have increased because they're accumulating. So naturally it is to feel that it is, it has to be reconstructed continually. I remember a mullah, once Mullah Nasruddin was going on the way and one friend has come and said, just like that, Mullah, what is your age? Mullah said, 40, I told you. But Mullah, 5 years ago, you told me you are 40. Now also you are 40. So Mullah looked at him hard and said, Babakoof, I'm not like you, keep changing my word. I'm 40, always. So this is what, if you don't change, then the reconstruction is not happening. So you have to constantly reconstruct. So now let us see how mind makes meaning and how designers and artists use that. Arun, can we see the slide, please? Okay. In this paper, there are, let us see the top row. One small circle and one big circle. What are they? They're just circles. But you put them together and you will immediately say, oh yes, this is infinity. Okay, you put them not horizontal but vertical, you will say it is number 8, abstract, which happens between 7 and 9. It has got a certain value. Infinity has a certain meaning. Yeah, and circle, big circle, small circle, it is just geometry. So the same thing, which is based on the position, based on the nearness, based on many things, keeps on changing. In fact, you must have seen this film called Tare Zameen Par about a dyslexic boy and it's growing up. He is growing up. In that, there is one scene where this boy the teacher writes a number like 8. And this boy is thinking of balloons and all things related to circuits. And dyslexic people, we look down upon them because they have some mental problem. It's not a mental problem. They're visually oriented. They don't like abstraction. So people who are visually oriented, for them 8 doesn't exist between 7 and 9. We are coached. It is a kind of, it's a coached coding. Now let us come down to it. What are those? If I give you a little clue, it is English letter. All those people who are familiar with English alphabet, in that capital letter E, do you see letter E? After I said this, you will see, oh yes, we can see, this is the Gestalt psychology. And all that, you will see letter E. And even that, if you see the right-hand side figure, it is the same E, but it is inverted. You don't see any more letter E. So in a particular, the mind, so what is happening is, mind has seen letter E capitals for so many times, thousands of times, millions of times. So it gives me smallest clue and it will say, oh yes, I know that. That is letter E. So this is how the mind works. So one is the coached coding. This is the previous experience, based on previous experience. Then there is another thing which I don't have to show it here. How many of we as children, now as adults, probably you don't anymore look at the clouds. As a child, I used to go to my terrace and look at the sky, and we children used to say, I see elephant in that cloud. I see, the other fellow says the same cloud. He says, no, that's not elephant, that is a butterfly. Somebody will say, no, I see a duck, I see a dog. So we used to keep arguing about it. And mind you, every one of us is right, because the cloud doesn't have any particular meaning. The meaning is made by you, your own imagination. You could see anything you want. My mother used to say, in that moon, there used to be some shadows, and she'll say, do you see the rabbit in that? Then I used to say, yes, I see rabbit. So this is what? This is the power of the mind and power of what you coach the mind about it. We would now like to, I would like to show some, visual examples, how designers, mainly, since I've talked about many products, this time I want to kind of concentrate on two-dimensional, which are graphics, and look at some examples. Next, Arun. Next slide. Yeah. This is a very famous Hermann Hoffmann's poster. It uses, this is seeing color in black and white. See, this is the magic of the artist or designer. In that swirling motion, and it's contrasted by this stark Helvetica letters. And you would see, although it is a black and white poster, you could see it colorful. Next. Arun, next. Yeah. It is said that teeth are the agent of power in man or animal, any being normally. So what are the teeth in a visual which we make? And it is said that a good, appropriate typography is the kind of tooth in a picture. Here, it's a kind of revolutionary poster. It's about war. It is a very strong, message. It oozes military kind of power in everything, in the lines behind, in the typeface which is chosen, and all that. Next. These are exclamation marks. Somebody very beautifully said that exclamation marks are traffic signs in a text. They will tell you where to pause a little bit, where to stop totally, where pause a little more, where you have to wonder, where you have to question, all that they will tell you. So exclamation mark, the exclamation marks are, punctuation marks are very, very important, although we don't give enough attention to it. Writers and designers don't give much attention to it, but it's extremely important. Without traffic signs, can you imagine what will happen to your city traffic? So someone thought of, now these are functional. These punctuation marks are functional. Can we make it decorative? So this poster has been made by someone who thought, he composed it like a painting. This is a painting with punctuation marks. Next. Yeah. Letters can also command your attention. So this particular artist want to make a very strong statement about AIDS. So he used color red and he used the traffic sign language, the octagon. And so this is his way of telling. It is like the police standing there, a sign that commands. Next. Next. This is very interesting. This is what artists do. These are black and white, figure and ground relationship. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you don't know what is figure and ground. But you see the black is actually, it's a very simple on the outside. Black legs showing that the male leg. And if you see down, these are white, actually, female legs. Two legs, man and woman. Obviously, black is chosen for representing men, and white is chosen to represent male because that is softer, and many other associations. Black is stronger and very kind of cold and strong. But beyond that, there is still something. What it says, this is called sublime politics. It's a politics. What are the politics which the person very carefully and cleverly had done? He's a kind of Japanese graphic designer called Fukuda. Battle of the sexes. Here he is showing that the man is kicking out the woman. Yeah, if you look at it for some time, you will realize, oh God, that is what he's doing. So that's what his statement of this particular poster is. Okay, that is high kicking male leg, and that also in black. So that is the statement. Yeah, next. Next is the artist can also fool the eye. What is he saying is, these are arrows. Arrow normally very innocently represents going in that direction. But this arrow is going in which direction? The small arrows all are pointing towards left, but together they're pointing towards right. And this one red arrow is very cleverly done. This is the odd man out. That odd man is the rebel. He is wanting to, everybody is going that side, but this particular fellow, this guy wanted to do something different, something opposite of what all others are doing. If you are really, innovative, that's what you do. You go against the current. So this is, all these things have been said by this simple poster using only one element, arrow. Yeah. So that is the beauty of this this is kind of fooling the eye and not showing the rebellion in a very strong way, but in a very fun way. Next. This is a poster for Mother, a company called Mother. They make baby products and all that. But there is a visual pun in it. The typography is carefully chosen, but what happened was the baby, you will see in the O, a baby, child, it is written child there. That baby is in a womb of a mother. This is what is normally called less is more or minimalism. So this is a visual pun in the O itself, in the name itself. When you write mother, you have put the child also in the O. Very beautiful. Next. Then how do you evoke raw emotion of a working class? This is very powerfully said. How do you show that power? It's an election poster. So this is, the hand is a very rough black, because it's like workers always, their hands are always soaked and they're always rough. They're not very smooth and they're, very raw. So that has been chosen, and the photograph is also made that way without any, softness in it. And to show the raw power, and this is the time for you to show your power. Next. This is how do you show majestically imposing a monumentality. So he has chosen to show it like a building as perspective, like it is a huge building with perspective on both sides. Next. We normally, when you take a photograph, many people will tell you, oh, it's not focused. Oh, it's not. So in photograph, as if clarity is the only thing. That's not necessary, because clarity says one thing, non-clarity would show another. This is deliberately made blur picture. It is blur. If you have to go long distance in order to see, actually there is a face of a man with white hair. And the letters, if you join them together, why they are done that way? Because he wanted to show this is a book cover called Nothing. How do you show nothingness? Non-existing nothing. The book is called Non-Existing Nothing. How do you show nothingness? The moment you show something, it is the moment you show, it is something. So how will you show? It reminds me of Bala Saraswati, the great Bharatanatyam dancer, supposed to be the world's best Bharatanatyam dancer. Once somebody went to her and asked, Bala, tell me, suppose you have to depict darkness. How will you depict? Total darkness. So she said, oh, it's very simple. I will close my eyes. This is true artist. A true artist, by her art, whether it is dance or acting or music or whatever it is, give the feeling which he is feeling inside, he or she is feeling inside, to the audience. So Bala Saraswati's answer was appropriate. She will close the eyes in such a manner that everybody who is looking at her also feel their eyes are closed. This is the true artist. Like in the beginning, I mentioned about that letter is to make us feel 17-year-old, no matter how old you are. You may be 70, but you can still feel that you are 17. This is the power. Next. This is irony. There are many things which you can do with art. Irony is, in poetry, in films, in stories, novels, etc. Irony has been used to great effect because irony is very powerful. So here we try to do it. It is a student has done it. The irony, he says, it says me fat. No way. But actually, if you look at the letters, you know that she is fat. So this is it. So it's a denial. So you know that this girl or boy, whoever it is denying that he or she is fat. This is the irony. Next. At one glance, what do you think of it? ABCD. Arun, next. Yeah. I want you to be exposed to only a little while. We will go back to that slide. That slide, what does that slide say? It is, how do you say no? You want to say no, but you don't want to say no. Without saying no, you should say no. Arun, go back to that slide. Yeah. So you assume, because earlier I said, the mind looks at only the salient things and you see the A and you see the Z and say, what is that? It's ABCD. It is A to Z. It's not A to Z. There are two letters missing. Suppose I want to say to somebody, no, but I don't want to hurt him or her. I will pick up this, which is saying no, because that no is not there in this. No is not there. It is in Upanishads, there is this philosophy. It's called neti, neti, neti. Not this, not this. You will know something by eliminating what it is not, what it is not. In the end, you will know. You take out, peel out what is there. In the end, you will find what is there. So that is the only way to know. So this is, we will not get into the philosophy, but this is one way of showing the no. This, next. There are some which obviously look very, on the face of it, they look very simple. It is a letter K, a sculpture made out of letter K. K could be many things. It could be OK, it could be K for kilo, it could be 1,000, it could be, depending on the context, like X. X also is like that. It's been, so some letters have been used. So one letter, but many meanings for it. And similarly, one word and many meanings. Long time ago, there is a Sarath Babu's film which is made in Telugu called Bhattacharya. I've seen it long back, but this particular scene, kind of is etched in my mind because there is one scene where Bhanumati was the heroine and Akne Nageshwar Rao, both were not there anymore. They was the husband. The scene is that the husband is inside the room. They had just fought on something. So he went inside and in anger, he closed the door and he is not opening the door. And the heroine, who is just married, goes to him, pleading him to open the door. In Telugu, the custom is that you don't address your husband by name. You use the word called Emandi, a very polite way of calling your husband. So Bhanumati, being a great actress, she tells, there are no other dialogues. It is only Emandi. So Emandi, she says so many times in so many different ways. It's only a great actress like Bhanumati, it is possible. She starts with very pleading, very low apologetic manner. Emandi, 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 So the tone keeps changing every time one emotion. And the last one, she will burst out saying, Yendi. You see how a same word can have many expressions. So this is what is possible. That is what true artists say, and they will change the mind. Sometime back I was reading, I used to read classics. Guy de Maupassant, you must have heard of him. He used to write very powerful. I used to be very fond of him. I looked at many times evenings, and poets describe it. Evening is so beautiful. It's like you have spread some kumkum there, or you spread some, you sprayed some color, etc. In this particular book, Maupassant says the evening, because the hero is going through a lot of torture and trouble. So he says that the evening is looking like a cancerous wound on his leg, which is oozing blood and pus and everything. He describes it so well. My goodness, it suddenly changed my whole bias about evening. So this is what the great artists do, poets and writers. So with that, I would conclude my talk. If any of you want to still have some energy to talk to me and ask me some questions, we can go ahead.
Yeah, Arun, can you stop sharing the screen? Thank you. So I think I have a question.
Yes, sure.
So, like it's a long question maybe. Is dream and art, is it both related, or it's very interdependent in a way? Because when we have from my experience I'm telling, so at times when I'm doing a work, and then it feels at times very, I'm not satisfied with my outcome, so I just take a break and then I go and sleep. At that time I'll get a dream which is not with the same situation, but maybe in a situation where I'll be in an airport, and the situation will be that I have forgotten my passport, my ticket, so they're not leaving me in. So that pressure will be there. So it will be like you didn't do the work properly. So that will be the outline of the dream. But that will be the exact case in the reality also. So does it have any relationship?
Yeah, okay, good question. You see, as you know, we have two minds. I didn't mention that because that will complicate it. We have a conscious mind which is operating during our conscious hours, daytime when we work and all that, when we are awake. When we sleep, the conscious mind is off. The subconscious mind never goes to sleep. It's always, it is deep inside. So the dreams are produced by the subconscious mind. And what is the subconscious mind? Every experience is distilled and goes into this core. Some of the experiences, and they will come out. Suppose you have a great fear of something. Say some exam is coming, and it's a life and death situation for you because you're pinning your hopes. This will go into this fear. This anxiety goes into your subconscious, and it has to release somehow. So whether it is you get a dream that you have passed the exam, or you get a dream because that's your wish. It's a wish fulfillment. At least in the dream you will pass. On the other hand, if you're too depressed, if you're on the negative side, you get a dream where probably you have failed in the exam, and somebody is beating you up and all that. Because you get the punishment also, then your guilt will be little less. Yeah. That way also dreams actually help. But it's not as simple as I said. Many times You're afraid to face the reality directly. It won't be that you may not get a dream of exam. It will come camouflaged as you are walking and, walking on a road and meeting somebody whom you're trying to run away from, or whom you want to meet for a long time, he met you. So this is symbol. He is the symbol of exam and you are the symbol of yourself, and your meeting is probably your exam is good and all that. And there is the whole, this thing of, there is a book, if you want to know more about dreams, Interpretation of Dreams by a psychologist called Sigmund Freud.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can read. But that is the only book, but you may not agree. I don't agree with many things which Freud said, but that's a standard book and Western book.
Okay, I'll definitely read that book, sir. And now we have a question from Mr. Mohan. So how do you leverage the psychology of mind to design of use experiences?
This is very simple. You see, every experience gets into the mind, and every action comes out of mind. So naturally, all our experiences will come out in what we do. And the same thing will happen to the user. User experience, his experience will reflect in the appreciation of a product or a service which is being offered to. So it's on both sides. Sometimes the designers will help the user in his appreciation. The moment I say something, like the Mopansa has changed my perception of evening from the normal perception, the designers also have the capacity to change it. They say now even the dreams could be kind of changed, influenced, and that is possible. If people use hypnotism mainly to deal with this subconscious, because otherwise it's not easy to go into the subconscious. So to answer to Mohan's question, this is absolutely possible to have the relation between your experience and your mind is perfect.
So, thank you, sir. I think there are no more questions left.
Okay, then. So yes. I thank everyone for patiently listening. This has gone more than what I expected. So
thank you so much, sir. Actually, I like this series more because the examples like you said about the clouds, so they were my forte. So I can relate more in that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. And to the others, thank you all for attending. And we have our final series next week on 27 June, 4 to 5. So the topic will be flashback on future. So until then, everybody have a great weekend. So thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you all.